All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Starcade Media Studios with my guy, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good?
Episode 221 is in full swing, full motion. We're so happy to be with you and for you to be here with us. Whether you are live streaming, whether you are podcasting, or whether you are YouTubing, we want to thank you so much for taking time to be with us. And this time, as we have yet again another off-season jam-packed, fun-filled show for you guys, we're going to have a lot of football discussion today. We're going to have a lot of Chiefs discussion today. So I hope you guys are ready, man. I can't tell you how long the show's going to go. Sometimes Trevor and I will have an hour and a half show. Sometimes we have 2 hours and 45 minutes, like our guy Shaggy Shane was with us last week, and we just went crazy. It really depends on how the conversation goes. And speaking of conversation, we need you guys to start joining the conversation more often. It's been great over these last couple of weeks, but we know that we can get even better. We have introduced a new segment to our show called Speak It, to where we give you guys the floor, man. We will dedicate an entire segment of the show to your guys' comments, your takes, your questions, your concerns, whatever you guys have for us here at the Spoken Podcast. We want it. We need it. We require it. Go ahead, drop it. Go to YouTube. Hit subscribe first and foremost, because we definitely need your guys' loyalty. We definitely need you guys to be a part of what we do here, if you've not already done that. And then as soon as you hit subscribe, man, go right into the comment bar and start chiming in. There's not a limit. If you guys want to have a ton of questions, you have 15, 20 questions, you have 15, 20 takes, man, bring what you guys got today. We would love that. And if you're not watching live, you're not listening live, it doesn't matter. You guys can still hit us up on YouTube, on our live stream, and on the clips that we post throughout the week, and let us know what you guys are thinking, man. That's been going on. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The weekly conversation has been great, too. I've been seeing people on Tuesdays and Wednesdays hitting us up with takes, man. I love that. I love that, because that means you guys are paying attention throughout the week, and we definitely want to hear from you guys, not just you hearing from us. That's why we created this 13 years ago. That's why we've been doing this podcast now for well over 4 years, going on almost 5 years, dude. Can you believe in February? It'll be 5 years since we've been doing this pod.
Crazy.
So we're really excited about what you guys want to talk about, what you guys are thinking about. So let's make sure and let's get that going today. And again, thank you so much for being with us. We love doing this. We're going to continue to do this. And I also, I thank you guys. I'm very thankful for you guys. Thankful for Trev being here every single week, and I'm thankful for Clay Windler for what he does for us every single week. But there's other people that I think that we need to be thankful for this week when it comes to Chiefs fans. The Chiefs just won their second Super Bowl in 4 years. We know that with winning, you tend to, as a player, as an athlete, as a team, sometimes you tend to ease up. Because it's very satisfying to win at the highest point, as our guy Mitch Holthus says, at the highest summit, you stake that flag. Oftentimes we see teams, we see players, we see athletes, we see coaches, things of that nature, tend to take the foot off the gas a little bit, and maybe you're not as hungry, maybe you're not as driven because you did what you wanted to do. Now you're making your money, and now you just kind of ease up a little bit. Well, there are also those athletes and teams that are driven by winning more. We heard Tom Brady infamously say one time, my favorite Super Bowl is the next one. I love that saying. I think that's an incredible saying, because that tells you what Tom Brady's all about, and it's winning. And we know that we have a guy like that here in Kansas City, and Patrick Mahomes. We heard him and Travis Kelce, we heard Andy Reid, we heard Brett Veach all say something that was very similar, which means they're all in unison with what they all want, what they all believe this team can and will continue to do, which is to win Super Bowls. And we heard that at the ring ceremony, Patrick Mahomes was talking about how, we're going to celebrate tonight. We're going to have fun. We're going to do this, that. But as soon as we're done with this, we're going back to work, and we're going to focus on how we can repeat as champions in 2023, 2024. And that's what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. And that alone tells me that this team's motivated and ready to go. But every once in a while, in the back of your mind, you start to worry, like, maybe they don't come into this year with as much gas, as much heat, as much fervor. Maybe that isn't what the Chiefs will come into.
Somebody needs to give us some bulletin boards.
Yeah, somebody might want to start saying some stuff. Yeah. Well, the cool thing is that we had the best of both worlds this week from the same team, and in my opinion, the only true rival to the Chiefs at this point in the NFL, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. So we heard the diplomatic and very politically, very sound leader of men, Joe Burrow, quarterback for the Bengals, get asked a question: who's the best quarterback in the NFL right now? And this is his answer.
I don't think there's any argument right now. It's Pat. Until somebody has a better year than he's had. He's the one to knock off.
Now, see, that statement right there, there's nothing to it. Patrick Mahomes hears that. Him and Joe Burrow are friends. They're competitors. They have a lot of respect for each other. You see that on the field and off the field. There's nothing to that saying, because Joe Burrow, first of all, is right. We all know that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. So Joe's just stating the obvious at this point. But also, we all know that Joe Burrow's staying very balanced, because I guarantee you, in Joe Burrow's mind, he believes he's the best quarterback in the league. As he should. And his teammates should feel the same way. Teammates like Jamar Chase, who decided to have his guys back, which, again, I love. If I was a Bengals fan, I'd want to hear that. I'd want to hear everybody saying that Joe Burrow is my quarterback and he's the best quarterback in the league. Well, Jamar Chase was asked a question similar to what Joe Burrow was asked, but there's more to the question. This is where things really start to fall off the tracks for the Cincinnati Bengals, and one Jamar Chase.
Very little hesitation, you said. Joe Burrow. Everybody knows that, yeah. That's easy. MVP. He said that. Who said that? No. Pat, who?
Oh, my God, that was hilarious. Jamar Chase was in the locker room after mandatory OTAs or mandatory minicamp, and we all knew that the Joe Burrow answer was going to fall back and it was going to bleed through into the locker room, because that is something that people are looking at for bulletin board material to talk about, because this is the offseason. We need things to talk about. We know the Chiefs are the defending champions, and the Chiefs usually keep things very monotone. Even with the Chris Jones situation that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, the Chiefs have been playing it very close to the vest. They're not giving us a lot of things, a lot of speculation. Chris Jones isn't saying a lot of things controversially, so there's not a lot of news coming out of Kansas City, so they have to outsource for opportunities for things to talk about, which is what we're grateful for here and why I'm thankful. I want to thank Joe Burrow for a couple of reasons. One, I want to thank Jamar Chase. I want to thank Jamar Chase for a couple of reasons here. One, he's the one now that's giving the Chiefs ultimate bulletin board material. He now, once again, and we know that Justin Reed last year kind of started this whole thing when he said he was going to lock down Hayden Hurst, their former tight end. Yeah. We knew that this was going to be something that they were going to use as motivation for themselves, and they did. Yeah. When the Chiefs visited him in Cincinnati, Justin Reed didn't have a very good game. In fact, he was bounced off the floor like a basketball, and they decided to block me on Twitter for addressing it. Regardless, the point is, that was how it all started, but then we started hearing about the Burrowhead shit. And we heard that there was some disrespect coming from that side of things that ignited the Chiefs, and the Chiefs go out there and beat them in the AFC Championship, and we know the rest is history.
On one leg.
And you think that the Bengals would have learned from that, because the Chiefs definitely did. Because after that Week 13 loss to the Bengals, you saw Justin Reed backtrack and then try to confusingly go back on it on Twitter and said he was right. I don't know how that works. But the Chiefs were silent from that point on. Andy Reid doesn't like that shit. He doesn't want his teams talking shit before big games, because he doesn't want to give the other team fuel. Even though teams a lot of times league-wide will say, oh, that doesn't motivate us. We've heard Mitchell Schwartz, the former Chiefs right tackle, talk about, oh, that doesn't fuel myself. Maybe that's true for you, but there's a lot of guys on a 53-man roster, and I guarantee you at least 30 to 40 of those guys are motivated by things like that, because we all pay attention to social media, and
human.
we care. Yeah, we care about what people say about us and our team. We take offense to those things. So I guarantee you.
And doubt is a hell of a motivator.
It's a hell of a motivator, and none better. There's nobody that takes that shit more seriously than our quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Right. Again, the guy who's already at the top of the mountain, just won a second ring in a 4-year span. Now he has everything he needs to be motivated for another season.
They keep asking for Petty Mahomes.
He's going to keep
coming out, man.
And what did we see, Trevor? Because not only did Jamar Chase give the Chiefs, and what I'm thankful for, the two things I'm thankful for out of this, not only did he give the Chiefs bulletin board material for 2023 moving forward this season, but he gave Patrick Mahomes a chance to body bag him in the offseason. How many times do you see an NFL player give another player an L in the offseason? That doesn't happen very often. But Jamar Chase put that out there and said, Pat who? And then Patrick Mahomes, and Jamar could not have timed this worse because it was the day before the Chiefs ring ceremony. And it gets that famous picture, hold up both rings, just the last one, both rings, that's who. I mean, dude, if that is the ultimate L, I don't know what is. I've never seen a player take such a big L in the offseason like Jamar Chase just did, and I love it that it's our quarterback that got to give it to him because, again, I am not upset. If Jamar Chase would have said, I think my quarterback's better, I think Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in football, because he said that before, I'm not offended by that. Patrick Mahomes probably isn't offended by that. He'll disagree just like I disagree. But I'm not going to sit here and kill a man who plays with Joe Burrow, who has a history with him far withstanding from the NFL ranks when they played together in college. Like, I'm not going to kill him for believing that because he probably genuinely believes that. But it's the next line. When you sit here and question who Pat is, even though we all know he's trolling,
The disrespect.
it's a disrespectful thing. And now what you're doing is you're putting yourself in the line of fire once again. So for the life of me, I don't understand how people have not learned by now that is not what you do with Patrick Mahomes. Because he's going to find, in my opinion, Patrick is the type of guy that's going to find his edge regardless of what you say or don't say. But I think when you give it to him, when you're literally feeding him the material, you're setting yourself up for the fiery, burning, anguishing end that you did not need. I mean, you might get it anyway. Like, Patrick might still give you that burning, fiery, anguishing end, but you don't need to ask for it, is what I'm saying. If I'm a Bengals fan right now, I'm pissed at Jamar Chase. I know they're going to downplay and say, oh, the Chiefs, they have the Bengals on their mind at the ring ceremony. But when you're feeding the material, it's kind of hard not to address it. And when we know that the Chiefs do respect the Bengals, we know that Patrick Mahomes respects the Bengals because, to the Bengals' credit, they have beaten the Chiefs 3 of the last 4 times. But now that the Chiefs have established their dominance in the playoffs yet again, getting that revenge from the 2021 debacle, which, let's be honest, had more to do with what the Chiefs didn't do than what the Bengals actually did in that game in 2021, which is the most frustrating game, I think, in Patrick Mahomes' career. That is where I think that things should have been like, okay, we're both going to respect the hell out of each other. We're not going to say anything. We're going to keep everything PC, and then we'll see who the best team is when we play. It was at New Year's Eve this upcoming season. Maybe we'll face each other in the playoffs. Let's keep it real PC, because you notice the Bills, to their credit, have not been talking shit.
Right.
You hear Josh Allen very diplomatic. You know, all the guys are talking very diplomatic about the Chiefs. Nothing but respect. Nothing but respect. They don't want to give the Chiefs any bulletin board material because they knew that 13-second victory
They felt it.
did them in, and it probably will do them in going further. We can talk about that later as well. But, Trevor, I want to get your thoughts on this situation. You know, some people might think it's nothing. I think it's everything. I think the Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are very thankful for this. I know I'm very thankful for this, that Jamar Chase decided to open his damn mouth. You want to believe your quarterback's the best? Awesome. Congratulations. Burrow's awesome. He's at worst the top 3 quarterback in this league. So it isn't ridiculous for Jamar to think that. But for you to sit there and say, Pat who? People might think that's whatever. They might think that's petty, but petty Mahomes is coming for that ass again. And I think that was all the fuel and all the ignition he needed for him to go after it.
Yeah, first of all, I don't even like the fact that we have to address this, because this is just loser talk to me. This is coming from a guy that fell short when it mattered most. Y'all had your best run yet in 2021. You guys, quote unquote, dethroned us, right, in 2021, and then you went and you lost. You lost the big one. You couldn't even finish the job. So it would be different if they were maybe our equal, coming off of a championship themselves, and still feeling like they are them. They have that juice to still be that team, even though that they just recently lost to us. But they're still coming off of a championship run, right? So maybe they felt they can see us eye to eye, but not even that. You're not even champs. You couldn't even win. You couldn't even get it done when you had your chance. When you had us down, you couldn't even get it done. Right? Yet we went out and we finished our job just recently, and you're going to question who Patrick Mahomes is? You're going to, like you just said, like you can say Joe is the best in the league if you want. And talent for talent and toe for toe, he's right up there with Pat. I'll give him that. Joe Burrow is extremely talented, and he's one of the best players in this league for sure. So I have no problem if you think that. But to go to the lengths of questioning who Patrick Mahomes is, it's just low bar. It's just classless. Like, And honestly, Joe Burrow is probably pissed off that you did that. That you you're making this into a rivalry between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes that doesn't really exist. It's really about the chatter between the two locker rooms. Because Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes have nothing but respect for each other, right? Obviously, they're both classy guys. For the most part, they don't really say anything that gives one or another a chip on their shoulder. This has been a lot of chatter amongst the role players and the skill players. So, I'm all for shit talk. I'm all for bulletin board material. I'm all for, teams having chatter back and forth on the field.
Sure.
But when it's the off season, we're about to do our ring ceremony. You picked the worst time to ask who Patrick Mahomes is, Pat who, when we're about to go get our rings. Honestly, it's just a low class statement from him, and I don't really have much else to say to it, man. I think it's pretty evident. I think any clear-minded, logically thinking individual would see that's just, honestly, he's salty as shit. That's just pure salt is all that is. They couldn't finish their job when they had their run. We took them out last year and finished the job like they couldn't. We led by example and showed how it's done. Once again, that's ring number 2 to y'all 0. So for me, this is punching down for us. This is punching down for us, and I just it is what it is, man. Let them talk, bro.
I mean, yeah, that's my whole thing, though. But even like I said, I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of a Jamar Chase or the mindset of a Bengals player or a fan, and I would just be embarrassed, honestly, because of the fact that yes, we can just look at this and just look at it as jet. But my thing is, even if I'm looking at it from a humorous point of view. How is this really like all that funny? Like you hear the beat reporters.
Yeah. To me, that sounded like nervous laughter.
Exactly.
Like, shit! Don't poke the bear.
Yeah,
don't
because
do it.
It'd been one thing, Trevor, like if the Bengals would have beaten the Chiefs again in the AFC Championship. Let's say Patrick Mahomes still wins MVP, but the Bengals get to back-to-back Super Bowls, right? And regardless of whether they win or lose, right? They beat the Chiefs in back-to-back AFC Championships.
If they won, I wouldn't have that big of a problem
Exactly, because honestly, like what did we say before last season? I said the Bengals are talking shit, let them, because they've earned the right to do so. Like if any other team or other fan base talks weird, or like Bills fans or any, it is confusing to me because the Chiefs have owned them in the playoffs. But the Bengals had earned that right going into last season. That's why I told you and I told Eddie, I was like, guys,
we had to prove it wrong.
I think they're the rival. I really think they're the rival because they're the ones that have beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. They kept the Chiefs from another Super Bowl run. That is why. If Tom Brady would have stayed with the Patriots, that would have been a Chiefs rivalry because of the fact that they beat the Chiefs in the 2018 AFC Championship and they would have been moving forward if, in fact, they would have beaten the Titans, which they didn't, and Tom Brady moved on. The point I'm making is it's just a very weird approach for Jamar Chase, not just disrespectfully, but, bro, they literally gave you the L and ended your season. Yeah. And then Patrick Mahomes on one leg goes and wins the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP for the second time. Like, when you say Pat who, like, that's like, and I'm not trying to bring LeBron into this, or let's say Michael Jordan. Let's say Michael Jordan won his second, after he winning his second ring, somebody's saying that in the offseason. MJ who? Like, it doesn't even really, it's not funny. It's like, you're not even like, oh, that's, yeah, I get the irony of it because he's kind of an unknown commodity who kind of, like, showed up. Like, if it was Nick Foles, you could say, like, Nick who? Like, it would make more sense. But when you're talking about a guy that's had the greatest start of an NFL career, I don't even understand like where his mind was. So I have to think that Jamar was, like you said, Trevor, salty, and it came out at the wrong possible time. I guarantee if Jamar Chase could take that back, he would.
Yeah, and I think too. Also, this was they were coming off in the locker room and it was changing. He was distracted. And he probably wasn't ready for that question. I don't know if they prepped him. They probably didn't even prep him for that kind of question. So he probably just still in locker room mode, probably just being, quick-witted and trying to talk shit in the locker room, and that's probably just what came out. I bet if he had time to prep for that question, he probably wouldn't have said that. So it was probably just one of those things. He was probably just talking with the boys, and then he immediately, got in front of a camera and was getting asked questions, and then was just
I will tell you, that conversation and the response that I saw from Patrick, it almost felt like a pay-per-view preview, where it's like next week, Sunday night, like if this is going to happen only on pay-per-view. It felt like one of those like WWE things.
I mean, what can you say to Pat after that? I mean, he absolutely body bagged.
Oh, yeah, Jamar's going to have to just plead the fifth after that and just hold the L.
Nothing you can say.
He's just going to have to hold the L on that one. Honestly, that could have been hold this L, this segment right there. But, I had to bring that up off the top of the show because I know that's been a number one talking point point amongst Chiefs fans, amongst NFL fans as a whole, because like I said, Patrick Mahomes absolutely dropped the anchor on Jamar Chase's head after literally asking for it. Like, he literally didn't have to do that. Patrick would have had a classy, easygoing night at the ring ceremony, and it would have been a total non-story. But because of the fact that, and it would have made Pat look kind of bad if Jamar would have just said, "Oh, I think Joe's the best quarterback," and then Patrick said something at the ring ceremony, put that tweet out. That would have made Patrick look bad. Yeah. Because of the fact, like I said, he goes and calls Pat out. It's like, okay, it's like doing a diss track to Eminem. Why the hell would you do that? If you're trying to get your career ended, go ahead and go that route. But that's not. I think that Jamar Chase is going to have to once again find out the hard way. That's not what you want to do. Because again, Patrick Mahomes was about 50% healthy in the playoff run last year and still whooped your ass, and then ended up winning the Super Bowl against the best pass rush we've seen since the 1985 Bears. Suck it. Yeah. The next topic I want to bring up is, I think, something that a lot of Chiefs fans are growing very concerned about. In particular, if you watched our show last week, you listened to our show last week, our guy Shaggy Shane Williams has been expressing his concerns as well when it comes to Chiefs defensive lineman Chris Jones and where his contract extension stands. There's a lot of conversation going around about this, and I know that I will say that we've been running some polls on our social media platforms, and a lot of Chiefs fans, I think, are more on our side of this one, Trevor, when it comes to, we know that this is going to get done, and they're very calm about this. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, over 70% of the voters on our polls, when I asked, where are you at on the Chris Jones things? Are you concerned? Are you not concerned? You know it's going to get done? You don't think it's going to get done? I mean, well over 70% of the people that ran that poll or voted on that poll said they believe it's going to get done and they're not worried about it. And I think that a lot of people are still standing on that side, because I think a lot of people also heard what Brett Veach had said at the ring ceremony from our guy Harold Kuntz. I'll give our guy Harold Kuntz a ton of credit. He had asked the question of Brett Veach, GM Brett Veach, where it stands with Chris Jones at this current time.
We're in constant communication. I'd be shocked if Chris isn't here. I mean, this is his type of party right here. So, but we have great communication. And look, there's a lot of time before camp, so feel good about where we're going to be with Chris, and we'll get to celebrate tonight and have a good time, and then break tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll have great dialogue from now to the start of training camp, and look forward to Chris being here and not just for next year but for a long time.
Do you have a timeline in your head where you feel comfortable getting stuff done?
No, not really. I mean, listen, we have a long history together, and we have a great relationship with his agent, so these things usually get worked out right before, right during the first start of camp, so we anticipate the same, and we'll see how it goes.
In other words, Chris Jones isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Brett Veach is one of the best GMs, and he's also one of the best GMs at being able to speak around things. That wasn't speaking around something. I remember when the whole Tyrann Mathieu thing was going down. I remember when the whole Orlando Brown Jr. thing was going down about, do you want to bring these guys back? Go listen to those interviews and then go listen to this one, and you will see a profound difference. What I found was, and I almost played it for you guys, but Tyrann Mathieu, when they asked about him after the 2021 season, Brett Veach said, a lot of hopes, and we'll seize, and we'll, we love Tyrann. Like those are the words. While we love Tyrann, well, we hope that we can figure out something with Tyrann Mathieu. That's something on our list. With Orlando Brown Jr., we brought him in here to be the starting left tackle. We love him. He's done a really good job. We hope that we can get to the table. And it was a very, I don't want to say vague. Vague's not the right word, but it was a very, we'll put it down the line and we'll see if we come to it.
All right.
You could tell that it was, we'll see. When it comes to Chris Jones, and I want you guys to go find the video. Harold Kuntz, go follow him on Twitter, guys, and go watch this video. Because Brett Veach has like a smirky style to his face. It's not stoic. He's not very serious and structured and politically correct about it. You heard it even in his tone about, this is the kind of party that Chris would like. We're kind of surprised he's not here. Like, you could tell that Brett and Chris Jones go way back. There's a very strong foundational relationship, because we know that Brett Veach has been with this franchise now for over 10 years now with Andy Reid. And he became the GM, as we know, in 2018. But Chris Jones got drafted in 2016, so we know they go back 6, 7, 8 years. So there is a profound respect between these two parties. Would I have liked to see Chris Jones at the ring ceremony? Of course, because Chris Jones is the life of the party, man. Like him, Travis Kelce, guys like that, they just bring that that pizzazz to a party, man. They bring that fire. You know, when people say that the party was lit, it's usually because of guys like Chris Jones and Travis Kelce.
Right.
So I'm sure that the team as a whole would have loved to have Chris Jones, and we don't really know what was going on. Maybe Chris Jones already had commitments. We have no idea. More than likely he didn't, and more than likely he's making a statement. But the statement to me is something that we all should have expected to see. We saw Arrowhead Pride and Pete Sweeney, those guys saying the same thing about this really shouldn't have shocked anybody. And it didn't shock me really either. I would have loved to see him there. I would have loved to see him collect his second ring and, be there and have fun and get a bunch of quotes in and, they can, talk about him or post him on social media with his ring and all this other stuff. I would have loved that. But you know what I'm going to love more is when Chris Jones finalizes a 3 or 4 year extension with the Chiefs and we have him here for those prime years and hopefully for the rest of his career, but more importantly and more likely, the rest of his prime. And that's what the Chiefs see in all this too, guys, is because of the fact that you can't, first of all, replace Chris Jones just like that. You can't just go and find a replacement for Chris Jones, even in 2 players. That's not something you can just do. Right. That's why the Rams were begging back Aaron Donald, even though he was hinting at retirement, and the Rams were like, all right, bro, what do we got to pay you? Because you're irreplaceable. Well, Chris Jones is on the same exact tier as Aaron Donald. In fact, I think he's better now at this point of his career. He's younger as well. And we saw the money that Aaron Donald got on that new contract. Chris Jones is going to get something very similar. And the best part about this is, and I saw people speculating on this, and they're worried now, they're concerned because he didn't show up to the ring ceremony. This is a bad sign, maybe there's bad blood. But I'm putting a full stop to that. I would have liked to gotten this done earlier as well, guys. If it was my way, I would have loved the Chiefs a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago to finalize a deal with Chris Jones. That would be so much more ideal. But that's not how these things go. And this is what I was telling Shaggy on the show. This is what I was telling Shaggy on our private time when we were just having a discussion amongst just him and myself, is that we know these things do take time. The beautiful thing and why I'm not worried about it is, one, Chris Jones is all out for the Chiefs. We know this is a guy that wants to stay here and wants to continue to help this team win Super Bowls because he knows his chances of making a Hall of Fame only go up if he stays here in Kansas City. Sure. 2, he's already stated, and Chris Jones is not a liar, and he's not a guy that just says things. He said multiple occasions on Twitter and other places that he's not playing anywhere else but with the Chiefs. And then 3, he himself has stated for himself, not through an agent, not through reports, he said himself, I'm not going to try to reset the market here. If he could, great, but he doesn't even want to be the top guy paid. I mean, I'm sure he does deep down, but that isn't his goal this offseason. His goal is to get an extension and stay with the team that he's been with since 2016 when he got drafted in the second round. Right. So that is why I'm so confident that's going to happen. I hear Brett Veach. I see Brett Veach say these things. I do believe, guys, before July even gets here, I think this contract's going to be done. I know that back in 2020 when this contract got done, it was July 14th. That's right before training camp, right before official training camp happened. Maybe that is what ends up happening. I don't think that's going to be the case because I think the Chiefs and Chris Jones have 4 more years of experience together, 4 more years of a relationship together, 4 more years of more Super Bowl success because, as we remember, he got this contract extension after they won their first Super Bowl. So history is repeating itself here, where after they win their second Super Bowl, he will get that next extension. The dollars, the amount, the years, we can speculate on that, and I always have fun doing that. I think he's going to get $25+ million a year. Yeah. But I do know, Trevor, that this will happen for a multitude of reasons because it isn't just getting him back. As we've been talking about on this show, and we've been hearing from other shows and other articles and other websites, other sources, this is also going to open up a ton of money for the Chiefs to make moves they have to make. And I'm not even just talking about DeAndre Hopkins. I'm talking about adding another pass rusher to the equation because right now the Chiefs don't have a lot of cap space. I think they have around 600-some thousand in cap right now. Right. You get a Chris Jones extension, you're getting from 16 to 20 million in cap space right there on one move. So we know this move means more than just getting Chris Jones back, and that alone is more valuable than we can put a price tag on. As it currently stands, I was looking up his market value on SpotRack.com. As it currently stands, Chris Jones' number is really heavy. They have him at $32.2 million per year. That is breaking the absolute bank. So, yeah, it'd be a 4-year deal, essentially $129 million. Average salary would be $32.2. And everybody keeps talking about, Trevor, about how Quinnen Williams is the guy to look out for when it comes to Chris Jones. I actually don't believe that. And the biggest reason why is because according to SpotRack, if you look at his market value, Quinnen Williams, that is, who's 4 years younger than Chris Jones, his market is set right under $28 million. It's $27.7. So his market value would be 4 years, $111-ish million. So their value of a guy that's 4 years younger than Chris Jones isn't as high as Chris Jones. So I don't think it's them waiting on Quinnen Williams to get his deal done, because there's other guys at their level or close to it that have already gotten their deals this offseason. So I think this is what this is coming down to, is just Chris Jones and the Chiefs simply sitting down and coming to an agreement. I think he's going to get anywhere from $25 to $27 million per year, because I think that's where he's going to be comfortable with, the Chiefs are going to be comfortable with. And I think we're going to move forward and go into training camp excited as hell that they got their future Hall of Fame defensive tackle in place for the next 3 to 4 years. That's how I see it. I don't buy into the Quinnen Williams thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm looking at the value here and I see that even though Chris Jones is 4 years older, he's got $5 million more attached to his market value. I don't think Quinnen Williams is all that relevant in the grand scheme of things. Where you sit, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Chris Jones is a piece to this dynastic run that we want to go on. He's a absolute pillar for this entire new wave of Chiefs football, the golden years, if you will. I mean, he's been a massive contributor to that, and he's been not only on and off the field. He's entrenched in this culture of this city. He's a absolute fan favorite. But I will say, actions are the most important thing to follow when it comes to people and who they are and what they do and what they're about. And his absence to the ring ceremony, it holds weight. It does hold weight, and I couldn't imagine it not being a statement for Chris, because I don't care if there was other plans. Chris Jones attends these things, right? This is not something that Chris Jones just misses. Just like with Clyde Edwards-Helaire not showing up to the Chiefs Super Bowl parade, that was a statement as well, right? These you make the biggest statements with your actions, and Chris Jones not being there absolutely is it should give you some concern. I'm not concerned that whether he's going to be a Chief or not, but it should give you concern on possibly, how good is the communication between the two parties right now, or what is his state of mind at the moment with this cryptic Instagram stories and things like that. You put those things together, and the words with the actions now followed up with his absence. It should give you some kind of pause. Me personally, and I think anyone who's pretty confident and feels that he's going to be a Chief moving forward, this shouldn't worry you too much. But I think it is Chris Jones saying, hey, man, look, I'm serious. I want to get this done. I want to get it done. I don't think it's a number that he's looking for, but I think he just wants to get this done for his mental, for him, following up his words to Chiefs Kingdom and Chiefs fans about how he's a lifer, he's a Chief for life. He wants to keep this run alive and everything on so on and so forth. So I think that's all this is. I think this is Chris Jones making a statement. Apparently Brett Veach was anticipating him being there, and he wasn't. So the GM was expecting him to be there, and he wasn't. So that's 100% a statement to me. Love Chris Jones, and I respect what he's done for this team, and I respect everything he says and all the actions that he's put forth. So I respect his choice not to attend if he feels a certain way. So take that for what it is. I don't think it's anything detrimental. I don't think it's anything that's a nail in any coffin of any sort, but I do believe that was Chris Jones intentionally not being there. So do I think it's anything that's concerning? No, I don't. But I do believe Chris Jones will, at some point, around training camp time, will have a contract extension.
Yeah, because again, as I was saying earlier, I think that the Chiefs know this better than even we do, that you can't just replace Chris Jones. But if let's say the Chiefs convince themselves or
both,
we're confident,
and both sides know that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
He knows that. Chiefs know that.
Right, and that's why they're going to have to come to a compromise here, because, again, for the Chiefs, they know that their chances of repeating as Super Bowl champions significantly go up with Chris, and without him, they drop. Now, I know he'll be on this team probably regardless on this season, but with the cap structure being the way it is, you really can't afford to keep Chris Jones on this one-year deal. The Chiefs have a $29 million cap hit with Chris Jones as currently constructed on final year of his deal. And they know they can save so much money if they just give him an extension. So, yes, you are paying a player that's going to be beyond 28 years old. But as we've been saying over and over and over again, the guys you pay that money to are unicorn one-of-one players. That's Chris Jones. He is one of one in the NFL right now. He is the best at what he does. Mm-hmm. He's showing no signs of slowing down, and he has no real injury concerns.
Coming off arguably his best season of his career.
And now that you have all this talent around him, and quite frankly, cheap talent around him, you can afford to pay him. Because even though we are on the belief of you draft defense and you pay offense, you still have those guys on the defensive side that you absolutely have to have. And when you have a guy like him at his magnitude and with his value of being able to get to the quarterback like he does at an unprecedented level almost at his position, only a few guys in the history of the NFL at his position are able to get to the quarterback like he does on a consistent basis. Not just sack totals, but pressures, quarterback hits, tackles for loss, things of that nature. You know you have to invest in him. The Chiefs already did that 4 years ago, and with him playing the way he's still playing, not 30 years old. And then you've seen other guys, in my opinion, are not as good as him in Fletcher Cox, who's awesome, but Fletcher Cox is 33 years old, still playing at a high level. That gives me hope, and that has to give the Chiefs hope that at 32, 33 years old, if he's still under contract, Chris Jones is going to still play at a high level. But even if he doesn't, you can structure a contract where the first 2-3 years of that deal is guaranteed, and then you have no guaranteed or very little guaranteed dollars attached to that third or fourth year, and then when Chris Jones is 32, 33, you can get out of the deal. And it would suck to see him go, but as we've talked about many times on the show, this team has to make moves that are sometimes uncomfortable. And at that point, that would be uncomfortable but acceptable and justified because it would make sense for the team moving forward. What makes sense for the team moving forward right now is having Chris Jones on the team for the next 3 to 4 seasons. Because, again, he's not at the end of his career. He's not showing signs of slowing down. If anything, I don't want to say he's showing signs of ascension because I think this is as good as Chris Jones is going to be. But if it's not dropping or tailing off whatsoever and he's healthy, it would be irresponsible to not pay him what he's worth. And here's the biggest thing. If they didn't want to pay him, they didn't have every intent of paying him this offseason, then you would have traded him before the draft. Right. Because the Chiefs knew that not only were they so far down in the draft, but also this is a very top-heavy draft. So they knew that, hey, we could go and get one of these legit defensive tackles in the first round. We're not going to pay Chris. Let's trade him. Let's go get a top 15, 16 pick out of Chris Jones. And they would have been able to do that. We talked about this before the draft, about how that is a possibility, but I said it's such a small possibility because you can't just find another Chris Jones, and you can't replace him with just 2 players. So I think that the Chiefs have had a same plan all along. They have a number, I believe, that's in place, and they're probably going to have to up that number just a little bit because, to your point, Trevor, Chris also has leverage in this as well. Because you remove Chris Jones, let's say he's sitting out, who do you have in the middle of that defensive line? I'm a big Keandre Coburn guy. Keandre Coburn. I'm big on him. I believe he's going to have a big year, but it's primarily for the fact that he's going to be lined up next to Chris Jones. I believe that George Karlaftis year 2 is going to be a baller. I believe that our guy FAU at a K-State is going to have a baller rookie season and play really well, but that's all predicated on one player.
Right.
And that one player is the guy that the Chiefs have to pay. So that's where I sit on the whole Chris Jones things. I want to hear from you guys in just a minute. We're going to get to the speak segment in just a second. I have a couple other topics I want to get to Chiefs related before we get to there. And if there's already comments there, Trevor, just load them up, ready to go. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I do want to briefly discuss a position that we really haven't addressed much this offseason outside of Jerick McKinnon getting signed back and the possibility of Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually staying on this team for this next season. I'll talk about Isaiah Pacheco for a minute because I think there is a large assumption that we now know what Isaiah Pacheco is. And let me first of all say that I think that Isaiah Pacheco has done more than enough to earn his spot as the running back 1 for this team for at least the next year. But I think that we need to also have a very realistic discussion about what Isaiah Pacheco is going to be. First of all, we team has, I think, the cheapest running back room in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. Now, we know that's not a real mystery because we know that the Chiefs don't run the ball very well or don't run the ball very much. This is a pass-friendly offense. We don't
invest heavily.
Yes, you're not going to see the Chiefs go and drop 12 to 15 million a year on a running back. That's just not what's going to be, and that should be the case for teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals, teams that have elite quarterback play. Unless your style is more of like a Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, you're not going to invest into the running game very much. But we know that Isaiah Pacheco is a guy that Chiefs very much take seriously in this offense, and he had himself a baller rookie season, even though he was a 7th-round running back out of Rutgers. He had himself, playoffs included, over 200 rush attempts, over 1,000 rushing yards, and 6 rushing touchdowns, and played really well even in the Super Bowl. But we also know that Isaiah Pacheco was battling injuries, and this is something that became news to us this offseason, where he had a broken hand and a torn labrum going into the Super Bowl. I hope that people understand that this is going to become more of a common thing for a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, not just because he's a running back, and that we see the natural, the tread starts to wear off on them quicker than other positions, But I hope that people understand that stylistically, Isaiah Pacheco is probably not going to be a guy that's around for very long. I hope that I don't want to sound like a wet blanket here, but we better enjoy Isaiah Pacheco for what he is while we still can. Because I can't guarantee that we're going to see this for 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. Maybe we do, but I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. We've seen the Chiefs move off of running backs, and it's been a rotation. So, although, yes, as it stands, without question, Isaiah Pacheco was running back 1 going into 2023. But after that, it's anyone's bet, Trevor, because something wrong could happen this season. He could have a season where he wears down, and that is why I think the Chiefs are going to handle this season a lot differently than they did last season, where you saw Isaiah Pacheco just in there, just grueling out big hits, going in there early in the season and taking big hits and punishment throughout the entire year. I think what they're going to do now that we know what he is, now that he's a valued commodity on this offense and he's proven himself, he won't be playing special teams. That's without question, because guys like Richie James and other guys like that will be playing special teams. And he won't be doing kick returns this year. He'll be 24 years old. Not old, but it's not – I don't want to say it's not old or it's not young, but at the running back position, when he took the hits he took last season, his body's going to age faster than a 24-year-old. I think what's going to happen, Trevor, is I think because of the fact Clyde is team, you're going to see Clyde get a lot of early season run, literally. You're going to see Clyde getting touches early in the season. You're going to see Jerick McKinnon getting some touches early in the season. Yeah. Not that Isaiah Pacheco won't play his role. He'll still get 10 to 15 touches a game on an average basis.
A bit of thunder and lightning.
I think the Chiefs are going to ease Isaiah Pacheco into this season. I think they're going to save his body because the way he plays, as violent as he plays, they know, even though the run game isn't what is the end-all be-all for their offense, they know their best chance of winning another Super Bowl is to have a reliable running game like a running back like Isaiah Pacheco, who's clearly the best running back on this team going into this season. They need to save his body and get him prepared. So I'm expecting 150-ish rushes during the regular season for Isaiah Pacheco, and then in the postseason, you're going to see him go out there and have his body ready. He's going to be well rested and ready to go. How do you see this season going for Isaiah Pacheco? I'm not saying we have to make predictions yet, but do you see it the same way where the Chiefs are going to utilize him the same way where they're going to ease him into the regular season and let his body really get acclimated for the playoffs? Because I think that's how it has to go.
Yeah, I mean, with the fully healthy Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I want to say a comment too at the same time. We got a Josh Recobb. I'm not sure that's your full last name if it cut off there. He said at some point at the same time when Frank was out, Jones didn't produce, and our three-headed RB monster, $3 million for Hilaire and Pacheco. It's amazing. Hilaire isn't no bum like a lot of people think. His numbers are good, and I agree. I mean, I think when Clyde is healthy, he's he's got Pat's trust. That's the most important thing people forget is Clyde 100% had Pat's trust. He's made some of the scramble play where he flicked it to Clyde in the end zone. Having trust like that with the running back is huge, and I believe that's why Clyde is still here and he wasn't dealt or moved off at some point this past offseason. Granted, his market probably wasn't great because the best running backs in the league don't even have a good market right now. Right. So Clyde's is non-existent probably. But I think approaching this season, starting the season off with a three-headed attack is the best move. I think that's the best move for the full season. I don't really want Pacheco to be the three-down guy all the time. Right. We don't need that. If we can utilize all these guys and mix and match formations, keep the defensive guessing. Because if we know we have Isaiah Pacheco in there for first through third down, he's our bell cow. Defenses will pick up on packages a little easier. But if we're mixing in, McKinnon here, we don't know if he's going to run it, if he can catch, and we know how deadly he is when he's catching the ball, and we know how deadly Clyde is when he catches the ball. Granted, he doesn't have the most speed, but he's very agile. He's been deadly before for us in the past. So I think attacking with different formations, with different running backs, mixing and matching these guys with their skill sets, I think is the best way to attack. And I think that's the movement across the league. There's only a handful of teams that truly have one bell cow guy. The Saquons, the Dalvin Cooks, and the Derrick Henrys and the Christian McCaffreys. Those are more rarities at this point in modern day football. And I think it's a good thing because it honestly helps the shelf life. It hurts their stock. It hurts their pocketbooks because obviously they're not going to get utilized as much, so they're not going to have to demand as much money.
Right.
But the running back position across the league is kind of losing its value as far as having that one true stud alpha bell cow back. That's kind of losing. That's kind of a losing thing now. That's going away for the most part. So I think the Chiefs have been ahead of the curve on that. Andy Reid's done that for a while. You know what I mean? So outside of like guys like Westbrook and things like that in his career, obviously Jamal Charles, guys like that have been on this team, were true alphas, but that's trending the other way. And I think Pacheco, like him as the first and second down guy. But I mean, either way, it's a win-win for me, man, because I believe Pacheco is a very talented guy. He can be an every down back. I do believe that. But if he's coming off an injury-riddled offseason, I think it is best to ease him in, see how he does, see how he responds after taking those licks last year. Even with those injuries and those licks, he still managed to score in the Super Bowl and finish the game strong. So that says a lot about him. So if he does come out guns blazing and start this season off the way he ended it, I will not be surprised there either. Right, but I do believe we kept Clyde here for a reason. I do think we ride him to the wheels fall off this season with what he can do for this offense. And then you got the most reliable guy maybe in this running back room is McKinnon, a guy that can have a 6 touchdown span in 4 games. So.
And I brought up Clyde and Jerick McKinnon because of the fact that I know those are the 2 veteran players that are going to be behind Isaiah Pacheco that we know are going to be reliable assets to a degree. Obviously, Clyde's had his issues with availability, with his injury concern, and Jerick had that before he became a Chief. Outside of becoming a Chief, he's been pretty durable as it is.
A lot of injuries.
Unbelievably productive.
Yeah.
There is a name though that I don't think a lot of people really know yet that I think could become, quote-unquote, the next Isaiah Pacheco for this team. That's Deneric Prince, the undrafted rookie out of Texas A&M. I'm seeing a lot of comparisons right now to Nile Davis. Now, Nile Davis was fun. I liked Nile Davis. He never ended up becoming that great running back.
Good special teamer, too.
But he played, exactly. I think that Deneric Prince could become that guy. Our guy Marcus Dash from Chief Concerns is big on him as well. He's the guy that told me to pay attention to this kid. I mean, he's 23, so he's not a young kid. Like he's not like inexperienced. He played a full career at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He's also 216 pounds.
Yeah.
He's a big running back. He's not like a Jamal Charles type where he's 185, 190 pounds. He's a powerful running back, 216 pounds. So that is what we loved about Isaiah Pacheco last offseason. When we saw him when I was up at training camp with Clay and Shaggy, and I'm sitting here going, dude, this 7th round, I remember I looked at them, and I was like, guys, this dude's going to be the starting running back for this team at some point this year. And I'm a Clyde dude. You know that, Trevor. I've always defended Clyde.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this kid play just at practice, and there was something real about him. Like, dude, he's running with everything in him, and it doesn't look fake. It doesn't look manufactured.
I'm here to take a grown man's job, like things like that. That gives you.
And if the Chiefs can produce another guy like that who's undrafted, and like you talk about the value of the position changing, now the Chiefs and teams like that can find these dudes in the 7th round or undrafted to become guys. Because Isaiah Pacheco was nobody. He was the fastest running back in the draft class, but he only averaged like 3.8 yards per carry in his last season with Rutgers. So people are like, oh, this guy's going to be a special teamers at best, ends up becoming a 1,000-yard runner on the Super Bowl winning team. So Deneric Prince, if he's got anything close to what Isaiah Pacheco has, all of a sudden, and I hate to say this, but guys like Jerick McKinnon and Clyde have to start playing for PT.
Yeah.
They have to start fighting for playing time. Because if a young dude like Deneric Prince can take over some of the roles and responsibilities of what Isaiah Pacheco has to do to keep him fresh for the postseason, you better believe the Chiefs are doing it.
Well, if one of them goes down, which honestly, if we're being honest, which is likely one of them gets hurt at some point this year, he can slide right in, especially if he earns the trust through the offseason and the practices and the scrimmages and the training camp and all that. If he earns Pat's trust and he shows out just like you said, Isaiah Pacheco did, and he has that confidence.
And let's not pretend.
Never know, man.
Let's not pretend that over the last 10+ years with Andy Reid, that Andy Reid has not kicked the tires on young running backs.
Sure.
I mean, we saw Sharkandrick West, Nile Davis, we saw Spencer Ware, we saw Kareem Hunt,
literally Isaiah Pacheco.
I mean, we've seen some young running backs in this team. Now, veterans have obviously played their roles as well. Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, guys like that.
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon. We've seen them play their roles.
Yeah.
But we saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire take over the running back one position as a rookie. Mm-hmm. We've seen these guys be the guys early on. Yeah. So would it really shock you if, let's say, Pacheco, who they want to kind of ease into the year, dealing with his injuries, coming off those injuries, and wanting to get him fresh for the postseason, would it be any shock to you if Deneric Prince looks good in training camp, does some cool things in the 2 preseason games, all of a sudden we don't see him taking first-team reps. It would not shock me. More than likely, you're going to see Clyde and Jarek get that early on.
Yeah.
But we didn't anticipate going after the draft. We didn't anticipate that Isaiah Pacheco was going to be running back 1. We didn't, but he became that. As soon as Clyde was down, Isaiah took over. Now, Jarek obviously had 9 receiving touchdowns, but he was the thunder to Pacheco's lightning, as you said earlier. They worked in unison because Isaiah, although very effective in the run game, his strength is not the receiving game. That is where Jerick McKinnon came in.
He got better as the season went on last year.
As he went on, but we all know that Jerick's strength is that. He's the receiving back.
Yeah.
Clyde was that in college, so hopefully we start to see that a little bit more this year if he gets utilized. But Deneric Prince could be that guy, that X factor out of the backfield that we're not anticipating that ends up not taking a grown man's job, but adding to another, becoming a guy that gets another grown man's job.
Or he could just be another Darwin Thompson. That could be the case.
That could always be the case too. But I think that if the Chiefs just get this right, where Deneric's just even a contributor, you go from having the cheapest running back room to one of the deepest. Because then, like I said, you have a top 15, 20 running back in Isaiah Pacheco right now. I think he's top 15,
cheapest
20.
and deepest.
Would you say Pacheco's a top 15, 20 running back in the league?
100%.
Okay.
Just scored the Super Bowl and won
let's
the
say
Super Bowl.
15. Let's say he's 15th best right now.
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon, top 30 because he catches the ball really well, had more receiving touchdowns than Justin Jefferson. Clyde, top 50, right? Then Deneric Prince, a guy who's not even in the top 100 right now, all of them works his way into the top 50 as well. Then you have 4 top 50 running backs on your team. I mean, you're talking about an offense who already is predicated on their pass game with 4 top 50 running backs on their team. I mean, dude, that is an ideal world to be living in, and I think that's what the Chiefs could be very much living in the very near future. Something else I want to discuss, and then we're going to get to speak it. I promise you guys. I want to get to the comments and whatever we have. You guys know what my number one talking point all offseason has been is about the Chiefs finding a way to get DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not going to be the one that's giving you guys just my take on this because I've done that for like the last 18 episodes. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to do that again today. Instead, I'm going to give you guys the take from someone who is about as close to the situation as you could possibly get outside of being an actual player. You guys know that we have a very good friendship with Mahomes' family. We're very lucky to have that. We're very privileged and honored to have that. And we've had Pat Mahomes Sr. on this show. We're going to be having him on the show in the very near future, so stay tuned for that as well. I want to give credit to 2 very dear friends of ours who also are podcasters, Linda Dorsey and Tanisha Mahomes, the aunt to one Patrick Mahomes II of our quarterback of the Chiefs. They have a show called Two Gyms and a Mic. It's a very good podcast. It's very, very fun to watch, very fun to listen to. It's one of my favorite shows. They're just 2 real ladies that just give you what they got. They're about as raw as it gets, and I very much highly recommend that you go and subscribe to their show, guys. They have a very good product. And this week, Pat Sr. was on the show with them. As we know, Tanisha is his sister, and Linda is a very good friend. And they asked him, what does he know about the possibility of DeAndre Hopkins joining the Chiefs? And this is what Pat Sr. had to say.
Dre is weighing his options right now. I've been with Patrick several times. He's called Patrick several times and, expressed that he wants to be there, but it's a situation where if he's going to be there, he's going to have to take a little bit of a pay cut. He's going to have to, cut his hair a little bit, to get the afro later on, hopefully they can figure out something he can be over there. But right now, he's trying to get that bag. That bag is a big thing,
Yeah, no, he said he was with the New England. He went to visit the Patriots, but he said he ain't no rush.
No, he's going to take his time. He's going to think about it and everything. But I'm hoping that some way they can figure out.
Shout out Silky P, man.
Y'all have been telling me.
With the gyms.
Y'all have been telling me. And that was courtesy, again, of the two gyms and a mic. Shout out. Y'all have been telling me for months that I need to let this go. That the Chiefs can't afford him.
We don't know nothing, Lance. Come on.
Yeah, what do we know?
Who are we?
And I posted that to Twitter yesterday, and we heard people, and even with Pat Sr. himself on the video saying what he's saying, people are still denying that this is a very strong possibility. The man just said in the video that Patrick Mahomes, his son, and DeAndre Hopkins have been on the phone several times talking about making this happen. This is not fan theories. This is not fan fiction. This is not conjecture. This is not me just making stuff up. This is from people that are actually in the circle that are saying that DeAndre Hopkins wants to be a Chief. I don't know what else we need to say here, guys, other than I think everybody should start getting on board with this. Because as my guy Pat Sr. said in that video, he might have to get a haircut to get the fro later on. What he's saying by that is DeAndre Hopkins might have to take a pay cut, which is why he's out there, as I said just a week ago, he's out there gauging his market, gauging his price, what these lesser teams would pay him. Because he knows, DeAndre Hopkins knows, if I go to New England, it's for one reason, because they paid me.
Yep.
He ain't trying to catch passes from Mac freaking Jones and dealing with Bill O'Brien's annoying ass who sent him off for David Johnson and a couple picks just a few years ago.
He ain't going to Tennessee.
He ain't going to Tennessee, even though they offered him a ton of money. They flew him Southwest, so that's an automatic L. So you got Ryan Tannehill and Mac Jones catching the ball from those two guys. You know you're not winning a Super Bowl. You know you're not. The Titans and the Patriots have a 0% chance of winning a Super Bowl next year. I'll just go ahead and put that out there right now. They're not good enough at quarterback alone, especially in the AFC. So DeAndre Hopkins knows I hire an agent in this offseason because I need him to be honest with me of what I have out there realistically monetarily.
Right.
I can go out there and visit with these other teams and see what they can pay me, what they'd be willing to pay me to bring me in. Then I go back to the Chiefs, who I've been talking to this entire offseason, and let them know what these teams are offering, and I can see if they can bridge the gap a little bit. So, for instance, if the Patriots and the Titans were to say, hey, like the Titans, let's go put Titans first. DeAndre will pay you $14 million a year for 2 years. We can talk about the guaranteed dollars later on. New England will pay you $13. Best we can do. We're not a team that usually goes that route. We're very conservative. We already signed Juju. We'll give you $13 a year. DeAndre rather, goes to the Chiefs, talks to Patrick, gets in connection with Brett Veach, Andy Reid, and goes, I'm averaging about $13.5 million right now in offers. If you guys meet me at 11.5, I'll sign with you. You're going to tell me right now, after this Chris Jones extension goes down, where the Chiefs, let's say at the bottom end, get $16 million out of him, they wouldn't put 11 of that towards DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, 11, that would be in the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have $5+ million left in cap space to go and sign a pass rusher, veteran pass rusher, to a minimum contract at $2 million. You still have $3 million to go and spend on. You have guys that are get injured in camp. Yeah. You need to go and get another cornerback. You need to go get another offensive lineman. Whatever the case is, you can go get a guy on a cheap deal. You still have $3+ million in cap space. And that, again, that's on the low end. Yeah. If the Chiefs end up getting $18-20 million out of a Chris Jones extension, then you're looking at $5 to $6 to $7 million after you made after you made the signs that you already needed to make.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'm telling you right now, I know that I'm the only guy right now that's been speaking on this out there right now. I know. Out of all the shows that are giving you Chiefs content, everybody else is like, oh, it's over. Forget about it. He's going to sign with Chris Jones. Yes, Chris Jones. Worry about that. Chiefs don't have the money. Guys, the fact that Pat seen just this like 48 hours ago put that out there in the air tells you exactly what I was saying, what Adam Schefter said last week about bringing up Chris Jones' contract situation.
Went out of his way to make that statement.
Had nothing to do with DeAndre.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with him. And he brings up the possibility of the Chiefs signing DeAndre Hopkins. That is because that is what Adam Schefter's been getting information-wise. They have relationships with training staffs, agents, GMs, things like that. Adam Schefter's not just bringing that stuff up on his own.
Right.
Adam Schefter has no horse in the race. And speaking of horse, if he does, it would be with the Broncos, because that's where he started and got his teeth cut as a reporter. He started with the Broncos. You really think he'd want personally to see DeAndre Hopkins with the Chiefs? Hell no. So this is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand here. And I want to hear you guys put it in the chats if you guys have them. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this and all of our discussions, all of our topics today when it comes to Jamar Chase and what he said, igniting Patrick Mahomes. When it comes to Chris Jones and his absence at the ring ceremony, what do you think that means? Are you still just as confident as we are that this contract extension is going to happen? And this whole Isaiah Pacheco thing, how do you think he's going to be handled this year? Who's going to be that running back that kind of surprises us? Is there going to be one? Or is it just going to be the regular guys, Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of holding up the fort as Isaiah Pacheco continues to get his body ready and hopefully for the postseason will be healthy? And this DeAndre Hopkins saga that just never seems to go away, because I refuse to let it, because we keep getting information each and every week. Guys, I'll tell you right now, if nothing changed this last week, or all we heard was Adam Schefter's report last week, and it's still the same, I wouldn't have brought it up today.
Yeah.
But the fact that I woke up yesterday morning to Shaggy Shane sending me the video of Pat Sr. talking to the ladies, Linda and Tanisha, about this very thing, I had to talk about it. I had to bring it up because it's still a very strong possibility. And I promise you guys, if and when it does happen, you're going to be very thankful when it does, because you're going to see this offense go to a whole new level than it would already. Do I think they need to get this done as soon as possible? Yes. Because I don't want to see, it'd be July 5th, July 6th, July 7th, and Chris Jones still hasn't got his contract extension and D-Hop is still sitting out there. But as Pat said himself, D-Hop is in no hurry to get a deal done with anybody. He's here to listen. He wants to know what these other teams are talking about, and there's always the possibility that another contender loses a player in training camp. You can have a Garrett Wilson for the Jets. Let's say he goes down with an injury. Then all of a sudden the Jets become a team that say, hey, we might need to go get D-Hop. So I obviously want to see the Chiefs get this done sooner rather than later because of those possibilities. But because of the fact there's been so much conversation and so much language between the most important player for the Chiefs, the most important player, the best player in the league, and DeAndre Hopkins to talk about how they can make it work, that tells me there is a strong possibility this is going to happen, even more so than what I had initially anticipated. This didn't shock me. This just reconfirmed what I had already said and stood on, Trevor, when it comes to this whole entire situation. So, I mean, when you hear about these visits, do you think that there's still a strong chance that he's going to go and just get the bag somewhere else? Because Pat said himself, he still wants to get the bag. Do you think there's a strong possibility that a team like the Titans or the Patriots would actually overspend on D-Hop? Is that something you think is actually real, or is this just D-Hop saying, hey, I'm here meeting with Matthew Judon, a friend of mine. I have respect for Bill Belichick. I'm here to just to visit and see what they would pay me, and then I'm just going to move forward?
I still think the Patriots hold weight because they're the Patriots. It's still the New England Patriots. Still Bill Belichick. But I have a hard time believing that they're going to overspend for DeAndre Hopkins. Especially with the quarterback situation that they're dealing with. Do they even trust the person that's throwing the ball? Whether it's Zappy or whoever, Mac Jones. They're both basically the same person. You know what I mean? Zappy might even be better, and that's a rough situation to be in over there. I think the Patriots, if any team's going to overpay and try to make a desperate move here, it's the Patriots, because they need to try to retain any kind of relevance they have, because if we all know, we've all watched this last couple seasons, it's dwindling pretty quick after the Tom Brady train is gone, because it seems like they're having a tough time keeping asses in the seats and keeping fans interested in what product they're putting on the field week in, week out. It was rough to watch the inconsistency of the last couple of years. So I don't know. I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is going to want to hitch his wagon to a Mac Jones-led offense. I think the Titans are just out. I think he just visited to kind of just dip his toe in the water and see how that felt, see how much they're offering him. But even that's a team that seems to be rebuilding in a run-first offense. I don't see it likely that he goes over there, especially the way the AFC is shaping out right now. So much competition. I don't. There hasn't really been any other suitors that have really shown up either outside of the Patriots. He only visited the Patriots in the Titans. So I think if his market was that, grand and people were wanting to pay for his services, he'd be having a lot of other visits scheduled. We've been hearing a lot of other rumors about other teams trying to get in the sweepstakes. But the only three teams that have really been mentioned numerous times were the Chiefs, the Titans, and the Patriots. And one team can offer what he wants.
Right.
We discussed this ad nauseum on the show, and I think it makes the most sense for him. But I don't know what's going on in his head personally. But like you said, he did go get an agent to help him process this and make this last contract of his career, possibly his last contract of his career, unless he does like a one and done with us, like Juju did, which is a scenario that could happen. He's still very good, and go get the bag next season. If he falls out there, who knows? But I think if I'm trying to put myself the logical side of his brain, I think the Chiefs make the most sense to go take a little haircut, as Pat would say, to join the Chiefs and try to get some jewelry on the hand, man.
Well, and here's the thing. We heard Albert Breer from the Monday Morning Quarterback, a guy that obviously loves my Twitter account. He said that he had gotten a gauge from several GMs across the league. Where do you have DeAndre Hopkins' market? And they said around $8 to $10 million. So that is the realistic scenario for DeAndre Hopkins.
We got you, buddy.
If there's a bidding war, then it could go up at a couple, which, again, I think the Chiefs would be okay with if and when they get the
like
Chris
a bidding
Jones.
war out there for him
exactly.
right now.
Now, here's the two reasons why I think his market is where it's at right now with only a few teams that you'd mentioned, because of the fact that the other teams that could afford to bring him in have already answered their positions or don't fit the criteria or don't fit the criteria.
And he visited both of them and left without a deal.
Think about this. The Bears could easily pay DeAndre Hopkins. Sure. But here's the problem.
They're not interested.
Did they not just trade for DJ Moore?
Right. And they got, what's his name?
Darnell Mooney. They have Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
They already have a stable of receivers and at run offense, first of all.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, and they don't fit the criteria for DeAndre Hopkins because they're not winning the Super Bowl.
No.
So then you have the Panthers. What did we hear DeAndre Hopkins tell Brandon Marshall on I Am Athlete? I don't want to play with a young quarterback anymore. I'm not at that place in my career. And it was
he's done that too much.
We have to remember, guys, that this is a guy this will be his 10th season in the league. Yeah. He's in his 30s now. Still very much, I think he's very close to the top of his game still. I think people are sleeping on how great he is, and I've already broke that down several times over. But I think that we forget, though, that guys at this point that have never won know that they have to do a certain amount of things and get to a certain place with certain people in order to get that change, to get that monkey off their back. And that is why his market is so slim. If DeAndre Hopkins was putting out there, hey, I just want to play football, let's just see what's out there, I guarantee you we'd hear 12 to 15 teams would be out there trying to get visits for DeAndre Hopkins. But because we know there's a specific reason for him wanting to play where he wants to play, you see teams like the Titans are fringe teams. See the Patriots, teams that might be desperate, like you said, that might be willing to pay him in order to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the Titans team knows that they're a fringe playoff team. They've been in the playoffs, 4 of the last 5 years. They know the Patriots. Bill Belichick might be on the fucking hot seat.
Yeah.
He might legitimately be on the hot seat. So if you added DeAndre Hopkins, maybe you get to that 9-win marker and squeak in as a wild card team. But we all know that on DeAndre Hopkins' side, he looks at those teams and he goes, I can't win a Super Bowl with those quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So even they don't fit his own criteria.
Well, it comes down to trade-offs, man. Life is about trade-offs, whether you're trying to win with success in business in life. You got to trade your time for money at times. You got to trade time with your family apart to go find your path and find success in life. You got to trade off time. What's the trade-off here? Is it the bag, or do you want to have success? Because the teams that are going to give you the bag, you're most likely not going to find success with.
Right.
So if you want success in a decent bag, the Chiefs are a great opportunity. A team like the Jets would be another great opportunity. Obviously, the Bills and the Ravens are two teams he was interested in as well, but they don't seem to be interested in him, right? So, and the Ravens already just paid another veteran receiver handsomely. I don't think they're going to do that with two of them, right? So it comes down to trade-offs for him. What's more important when it comes down to it at the end of the day for him and his agent? What's more important? What does he want the most?
Right.
And yeah, man. I mean, if he wants to go play for the Titans or the Patriots, so be it. It's going to be a lost season. That's all I'm going to say. You go play for those teams, it's just going to be a lost season. You're going to have your money at the end of the day, and you're going to, secure that. That's fine. But I don't think that's what DeAndre Hopkins wants. And he doesn't make a statement saying I don't want to play with a young quarterback if he doesn't want to go out there and win.
Right.
He's saying that because that hurts his chances of winning. You know what I mean? So he wants to play with somebody who's team first and all that. He said his initial statements when he was a free agent. He wants to play for a quarterback that's team first and is out there wanting to win. And I mean, there's only a few of those that are really legitimately elite at doing that in this league. So.
Right. A couple other things I want to get to before we get to our final segment. Or again, we have the chats open. I would say that we've fully swung over to the Speak It segment. If there are comments at all, Trevor, I don't know if there are or not. Yeah. But we can get to those real quick. But I
have a couple questions.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's bring those up. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me see.
Chris, the one that was really Chris Jones. I do want to bring that one back if you could, because I didn't get to answer that one. How about that one?
Which one was it? The
about a minute ago we were talking about the running back position, Chris Jones, things of that nature.
Yeah, we'll find one, but we got one here from our guy Josh. I think Recob. Sorry if I'm saying your last name wrong, or if it's not fully showing up the whole last name on here. But I'll put it on the screen for you. It's he says, question for you guys: do you like Nagy as the OC now? Personally, I do, but I want your take.
Well, I'm here like this. First and foremost, I absolutely do. And it's no. I feel like whenever we show support for the guy that replaces Eric Bieniemy, it's going to almost be like you're approving of losing Eric Bieniemy.
Or you're anti.
But I said last offseason that I felt that although Eric Bieniemy had done nothing but awesome things in Kansas City, I mean, you can't have a better run as an OC than what he did in his 4 or 5 years with the Chiefs. But I had felt that it had gotten to a point where he had didn't wear out his welcome, but he was becoming a guy that was overqualified for his position. Eric Bieniemy deserved a head coaching job years ago. And so I wanted to see him get that chance. And as we all know, he still hadn't gotten that. But when he moved forward with the Commanders, I felt happy for him and equally just as happy for the Chiefs, because Matt Nagy, to me, could be an even better OC for the Chiefs because of the fact that he had that head coaching experience. He had taken a Bears team with Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles to the playoffs twice.
Yep.
He had a winning record with that Bears team. So Matt Nagy got the shit into the deal on that one, got fired out of Chicago, came back to Kansas City, originally as the Chiefs' quarterbacks coach when Mike Kafka left for the Giants. And I knew that the moment that happened, that he was going to become the successor at offensive coordinator. And we remember when he was the offensive coordinator for that 1 year in 2016 for the Chiefs, this offense was flowing. And that was with Alex Smith. Imagine what he's going to do. He's saying the praises. I'm sorry. Was that 2017? That was 2017, I think, when 2017 was when he was the OC for the Chiefs. And saw the way the running game was so effective, and that's something I've been talking about earlier on the show about how this running back stable can be very deep, very young, very motivated, with some veteran experience sprinkled in with Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Matt Nagy is the right offensive coordinator for this evolved version of Patrick Mahomes, and quite frankly, I'll say this, he could very well be the successor for Andy Reid one day. I think there's a very strong chance that we could see, whenever that time comes, that Andy Reid does retire, that Matt Nagy does step in for that head coaching position. Obviously, we don't know who would be available at that time. There could be a Sean McVay that could be available at that time, who's working in TV at that time.
You already know how I feel about that.
Yeah, let's say in 3 or 4 years, when Andy Reid decides to step down, at that point, Sean McVay's been in TV for a couple of years, and he wants to get back into coaching, and he sees a 31-year-old Patrick Mahomes sitting there.
Yeah.
Maybe he wants to come back. If that's the case, then obviously we can have a conversation about Sean McVay taking over. But as it currently stands, I think if Andy Reid was to retire, let's say in 2026, I think that Matt Nagy, who's 42, 43 years old right now, at 45, 46 years old, could step in already with head coaching experience, already with head coach success, being a team that could have been to the NFC Championship if it wasn't for a double doink from his kicker at that time in Chicago against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that you could see
Cairo
him.
Santos, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was.
That wasn't Cairo Santos.
That was a weird.
I forget who that was.
He had the bleach blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
I forget his name, but I do think he's the guy for this job. Do people prefer to get a guy that maybe has some different thoughts, viewpoints than Andy Reid? Sure. But honestly, I think Matt Nagy stepping away from the Chiefs and then coming back a few years later could get – we've talked about this on the show before about how maybe he saw some things as a head coach in another place that he didn't see before as an OC in Kansas City, brings that back, brings those ideas to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Andy Reid being more open-minded to him bringing that into the offense, implementing those schemes. I think this is only going to be a good thing, man. So I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
Bro, I love Matt Nagy. Let me just say that first and foremost. I love that he's back. I love that he's in this position now. All love to Eric Bieniemy. There was just too much controversy going on, and I think he wanted more, and I think he's going to have a great opportunity. And I fully support the move for him personally to go to Washington, make more of a name for himself. Because listen, man, when you're under the umbrella of Andy Reid, it is hard to get recognition sometimes when people second guess whether it's you pulling the strings or if it's him. Because Andy Reid is such a puppet master, right? We get it, and it's tough. Granted, I came out and found success and had coaching jobs, and Bieniemy hasn't had that yet, and that's an unfortunate fact of reality that we're living in right now, and I hate that. But I love Eric Bieniemy, and I hope the best for him in Washington. But I do love me some Matt Nagy, man. I love those clips from when he was in the Super Bowl, when the mic'd up, one of the best mic'd up Super Bowls I've ever watched. When he was the pregame warming up a Pat, throwing the ball around, he's like, "This is what it's like. This is how it feels." Like, that shit gave me chills, bro. Like, that's a guy that wants more of it. And I know his mentality and how he was raging at the parade.
His awkward ass white boy dancing.
Bro, it was a dad out there. It was like dad moves, bro. Like, that was me out there if I was out there shaking it, man. So I love his personality. I love his relationship with Pat. I love his relationship with Coach and Veach and all these guys. I think he's a guy that would demand a locker room for sure. Very smart, ex-quarterback. He knows the game. He has good relationships with all of our stars in this locker room. I think he's a leader of men, and I've always liked Matt Nagy. And I think, like you said, his success with a very subpar roster over there in Chicago and still made the best of his situations. And I like guys that makes the best of their situations. I don't think he was a failure in Chicago, and I don't think most fans in Chicago would tell you that. In hindsight, they didn't like him very much towards the end because things just got tough and that team just got shitty, if we're all being honest. So to answer your question, yes, I am a big fan of Matt Nagy, and I think he could be the successor of Andy Reid for sure. I did not see a Chris Jones question, but I know we have a couple questions here from our guy James T. Kirk on the YouTube side.
Nice.
He says this. He says, I'm gonna put it on the screen here. He says, Do you think the Cincinnati media members are the ones gassing up this rivalry? The Bengals are cocky. The Bengals are cocky, but to me, it seems the lead writers over there love to stoke up the shit talk. Agree?
I 100% agree that they want. You have to think media members want a story because it gets them ratings, gets them promotions, it gets them all that stuff. They trust me. They want this,
of course.
You know what I mean? Like,
Drama
not to get political here, Trevor, but Fox News and CNN love Trump because they knew that he gave them a lot of ratings. He said ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
He said a lot of things that were he's a very polarizing figure. So both parties loved him.
Yeah, salivating
so
over that,
when it comes to this. And a very different, more of a microscopic viewpoint. Yeah. Yes, they want these things, but at the same time, the responsibility still lies on the player. Because look, all the years that Derek Jeter was a player in New York, the number one market in all of sports, right? How many controversial things did he say? But you're going to tell me for a second he didn't have millions of controversial questions? Remember the whole tension between him and A-Rod? You know, the Joe Torre stuff.
Who he's dating.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
How many controversial questions he had that he put down with relative ease?
Oh, yeah.
You don't think there's a couple times where Derek Jeter wanted to say some stuff he didn't say? Like Tom Brady always said, he goes, there's what I tell you in the media and there's the truth, basically. Yeah. Like he's
remained that way even in his retirement.
Yeah, he says like over 60% of the things I tell you are things that aren't even the full truth. He has to play political because he knows he has a brand to protect, he has a team to protect, he has players to protect, a lot of players to protect, a lot of people to protect. The problem for the Bengals are they still don't get that. So their media is going to say, well, we know this. We know how these guys are. Outside of Joe Burrow, there's going to be some dudes that are going to be talking some shit.
Let's just surprise them with the question and see how they answer right off the cuff.
We know that those guys are going to say some things. That's why it pissed Andy Reid off so much, because for a decade, he had very much set in stone, we're not giving them bulletin board. Yeah. We're going to talk very classy, very boring. Like when you listen to a Patrick Mahomes interview, it's very boring because he just sits there and says all the nice stuff and things that you know are coming.
Well, what other winning franchises have done that? Belichick has had his locker room the same way. It makes sense.
It works. It's be monotone, rock them to sleep, and then kill them. That's how you want to do it. And when Justin Reid, who was brought in to be a leader, did the opposite, it pissed Andy Reid off, and then it came to piss the Bengals off and motivate them to. And I think it played a part in them winning because what they do, they targeted Justin Reid early often in that game, and he got destroyed. So I think that's the way that's the way this has gone with the media out there. As they see it that way, they know this is going to get a story, and it worked.
And it makes sense too. Like, why do you think Tyreek Hill's been chomping at the bit to get any bit of soundbite he can out there since he's left Kansas City?
He has just not stopped.
It makes all this sense.
It's like all the built up, just like he wanted to talk so bad that for 6 years that he finally gets a chance.
Yeah, or our guy Josh just said too. Brought up until Travis Kelce talks. Travis Kelce learned his lesson the hard way too. He did that stuff and he got put in the doghouse for a little bit too, and he was doing that shit with the refs and all that. Yeah, and what has Travis Kelce done since then? He's done nothing but learn from that.
Right.
He still has his moments on the field, but I mean, for the most part, man, that guy is a completely changed individual. Question also from James T. Kirk. He's this is a training camp question. I'm thinking of attending my first Chiefs training camp. What would be the best days to go, and any suggestions how to stay cool?
Well, there's not a lot of shade out there when you're going. I've been going to training camp for well over 10
Bring
years
your
now.
sunscreen.
Yeah, wear your sunscreen, especially if you're pale like me. Definitely do that. Wear a hat. Wear like those Kangol hats, something like that. Wear something that covers all your skin if you can, because it gets pretty brutal out there in the dog days of summer. So good luck on finding shade. I would recommend probably just standing over on the south end of the fields if you can, because that's usually where like the bleachers are. If you want to stand under the bleachers, you can still get a good shot of the fields. Yep. When it comes to the days, it's tricky because they change things up. So I don't want to say a definitive date. I will say that the first week is going to be very packed. It's going to be light drills though, so it really depends on what you're looking for. Yeah. If you're wanting to go out there and see some hard hits or some real grueling practices, I would recommend that you go towards the preseason games. Like when they start playing preseason, that's when they start hitting a little bit more. Andy Reid has a very physical style of training camp, but in the early stages of it, you see it's very loose, getting guys' bodies going, because a lot of guys are dropping weight. They're trying to get in even more shape. Yeah. That's usually what you see for the first week or so. So if that's not what you're looking for, I wouldn't recommend you go early. I would recommend you go later in July. But I would say that the Family Friends Day or the Family Fun Day when they do, that's a lot of fun because you have all the kids out there, they're doing their thing, and then the Chiefs like to put on a little bit of a show. Yeah. They start doing the fun stuff where Patrick Mahomes is like trying to hit the crossbar, throw him behind his back. All the quarterbacks doing their competitions. They do that on a normal basis, but they really lean into it at the end of training camp because they know that they've pretty much solidified their roster and the guys are having fun and they're about to start the regular season. So I would recommend if you're looking for the right time to go for the experience factor, I would go later in training camp.
Yeah, and Josh asks if we're going to be there. Lance will probably be there maybe a couple of the days. I'm definitely not going to be able to make it out there.
I will confirm this, and we'll definitely put this on the social media platforms. There's a tradition I have. Shaggy Shane and Clay Windler and I will be there the first day of training camp. It will be a Saturday. We will be there the first Saturday training camp day. So you will find us out there. We'll put it out there. We usually hang out over in the media area. There's a hill on the the west end of the field. So you'll have the left field and the right field. We're over usually on the left field, up on the hill by the media availability area. You'll see Shaggy. Shaggy's like 7 foot tall. You can't miss him. And I'll be there in between him and Clay. We'll just be sitting there chilling, looking at stuff, taking some notes. And then Trevor and I will have a show later on that Saturday. It'll be a little bit later than it normally is. But, that's where you'll find us. I will be there the first day. I can't promise how many days I'll be out there availability-wise. The weeks are usually pretty rough for me at this point. But there will be at least probably 3 or 4 practices that I will be out there, and I will make sure to announce that before I go out there for sure.
Okay, that is I believe that's all the questions we have from our commenters. I do have a couple questions myself.
Go ahead,
I've got some topics that we can talk about. Bring some NBA into the mix. We got a lot of possible moving parts here in the NBA, man. We got I don't know if you saw that Chris Paul is possibly on the move. Not sure where you think a good landing spot would be for him. Him most likely being, I don't think it's happened yet, but he's most likely trending towards being cut from the Suns. I mean, they could cut him and bring him back. There could be a situation where that happens, but I think the Suns are looking to bring someone else in. There's been rumors about James Harden and things like that as well. But yeah, we got Chris Paul in the move. We got Damian Lillard possibly in the move. Bradley Beal's most likely gone. And James Harden's looking, there's a lot of rumors surrounding him. And he might go somewhere else. And, where do you think these guys end up landing? And if you think there's the best landing spot for any one of these guys?
I will say this. I think that Chris Paul at this point of his career needs to be at a place that, one, he can win a title, obviously. And two, it's a team that is very much on the fringe of winning a title. Mm-hmm. If I'm betting right now, if I think there's there's no perfect spot for a 38-year-old at his advanced age and is injured quite often now. I think he missed 25 games this last season. Missed playoff time obviously with the hamstring again.
Yep.
I think it's the Boston Celtics. And I think the reason why that is because they need to have a shakeup anyway. And I think they need a veteran guy who – and Chris Paul, to his credit, does have plenty of playoff experience. That's a team that's on the fringe. They've been in the finals recently, and they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals for they've been through – that was their 4th or 5th Eastern Conference Finals trip in like 5 or 6 years. So that's a very experienced team that needs somebody that I think can facilitate the ball. They don't really have that. They don't really have that facilitating guy that can really move the ball around and make Jason Tatum's job that much easier. And if that is, of course, if Jaylen Brown is back, if that team is as it currently is constructed, you need a coach on the court, even more so with a guy like Joe Mazzulla, who we don't really know what he is as a coach.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, to me, knows basketball just as good, if not better, than Joe Mazzulla. So that'd be the perfect place for him because he can kind of coach the team, kind of get those guys geared up and ready to go, keep them accountable. I think that's the right spot for Chris Paul. So I would say the Boston Celtics for him.
Okay. Yeah, and then Bradley Beal, obviously he's got that no-trade clause, so he has a lot of control here where he wants to go. And they're obviously, I think the Wizards we're talking about, they're working with him wherever he wants to go. So where do you think that guy is going to end up? There's 2 teams I think that are the most interested in him. I think it's the Bucks. The 2 head teams in the mix right now are the Bucks and the Heat. 2 teams that would be great landing spots for him, man.
Yeah, I think if he was to go to the Bucks or the Heat, those teams are going to the finals.
Yeah.
Because Bradley Beal, I think, is a perfect 2 or 3.
Well, I'm going to throw Damian Lillard in there real quick because there's rumors about a super team forming with Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal going to the Heat.
I'll give you my Damian one in a second.
Yeah, okay.
To address Bradley, 29 years old, still. I mean, he's missed a bunch of games over the last few years, but the dude averages 27 points a game over the last couple of years.
One of the best scorers when he's on his game.
Yeah, one of the best guys that can create a bucket. He's not just a pure scorer. The dude can create a bucket.
Mid-range 3,
yeah, not a very good defender, but not a bad defender. His availability is a concern, which is why he'll probably have to be a 3 on a team that can win a title.
Yeah.
I know Miami makes a ton of sense, and I think that is a team that he would waive his no-trade clause.
Miami's going to get
go
somebody.
To. I will say, though, that, man, I know this is going to sound pretty weird. I think if Brad Bill tried to go to a Western Conference team, I think the Clippers would be a hell of a team for him to go to. Because of the fact that he's going to get plenty of play time. If they trade him for Paul George, I think he's an elevation on the offensive side from Paul George, because Paul George has been, if you noticed, his offensive game's gone down a little bit over these last couple of years. He hasn't been.
I still think Paul George is the better player.
I think he's the better player, but I think he fits what the Clippers
still
are doing. I think if Bradley Beal wants to win a title, though, I think he's probably going to end up going to the Bucks. I think that's a team that would make a lot of sense. No, the Wizards will trade him to the Eastern Conference. Now, obviously, they don't have much of a choice because of the fact he's one of the few players in the NBA that have a no trade clause, and there's $250 million attached. So the team that he traded is going to be a team that obviously he wants to play for, that the Wizards are going to have to facilitate the trade for, but also going to be willing to take on that type of money for a guy that's going to be their 3. So I would have to look at the cap structures of some of these teams. Now, luckily for the Heat, if he was to go to the Heat, they don't have a lot of guys that are making big bank. You got Jimmy Butler, you got Bam Adebayo, but those guys I think are making a combined like $40 million.
And they just overachieved. We're in the finals again.
So I think if the Heat want to continue that trend, they add a guy that would be a major punch to the equation. But if I'm looking at Bradley Beal finally winning, put him next to Giannis.
Yeah.
Even if they have to trade a Drew Holiday, like that team's not getting younger. Chris Middleton, they're trying to move off of him too.
Yeah, you slide Beal in for Middleton.
Yeah,
that's a huge
and you keep
move.
Drew Holiday. Oh, dude!
But 2 guys that are banged up consistently as well.
That team won. Was the 1 seed in the East. Should have gotten out of the first round. Giannis's injury was the reason that primarily happened. And the Heat overachieved.
The Bucks especially too, because their championship window is still very much wide open, and you're gonna have possibly the most motivated Giannis we've ever seen.
Right, and as we know, Bradley Beal isn't concerned about market. Because as we know, DC isn't like this great basketball market.
He took the bag there, bro.
He took the bag, and he stayed there, and he was loyal to that team, had no controversies. Even if he has to go to Milwaukee, if he knows he's playing with arguably the best player in the world, that is a perfect landing spot for him.
That's the best spot for him because it takes all the pressure off him.
Right.
The pressure is always on Giannis.
Now, if he ends up in Miami with Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, and those guys, then that's a really good shot. But here's the other thing. Bradley Beal has to be worrying about the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler's going to be 34 next year. Like, is that really one you attach yourself to, or you want to go to a 28-year-old Giannis?
Yeah, I think Jimmy's different though. His conditioning is insane.
I get it.
But we did see him crumble these last couple games in the finals. Man, he was not good.
If you want to win a title, I would. If I'm Bradley Beal, I say trade me to Milwaukee.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Get a couple picks, get a Chris Middleton or something like that. Because here's the thing: the Wizards have no real leverage. They're gonna have to take kind of whatever they can get.
Yeah.
And these teams know that because there's only gonna be 3 or 4 teams at most that Bradley Beal would sign off on. I'd love to see him go to the Lakers, but I just don't know with Rui and with Austin Reeves being guys that the Lakers want to keep. Those would be guys that you'd have to trade in order to get a Bradley Beal. And I just don't know if they're gonna move off those guys or not.
Yeah, and then James Harden, I don't really care where he goes. There's been rumors about him going back to Houston. With that young core they're building over there, which is a solid young core, talented. But I mean, do we really expect James Harden to go lead these men?
Not to dive off of James Harden because I agree with you. I don't really care at this point. I think James Harden's starting to really show signs of regression.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard should be a Sixer.
I think he's going to the Heat, man.
If that really depends on the whole Bradley Beal thing. But here's my thing: if the Sixers could get Damian Lillard with Joel Embiid, and you have Tyrese Maxey, and if they still have some of these guys around, those 2 guys, you got to think about this, Trevor. If you look at star power in the Eastern Conference, they'd have the most. They would have the most star power.
I'd feel better about it if they didn't just fire Doc Rivers.
Yeah, but they just got Nick Nurse.
Yeah, man.
Who right now might be just as good of a coach as Doc.
Yeah, but
he's won a title recently.
There's something about Doc Rivers, though. He has clout amongst the players. The players love Doc, bro. And I know, and it's crazy because Doc has a terrible track record in the postseason, man.
But Joel Embiid had to have signed off on it because they don't just fire Doc Rivers unless Joel Embiid's on it.
Which is strange because Doc continually loses faith in his star players. Just like the big 3 in L.A. and then obviously in Boston, that relationship fell apart between a lot of those guys as well. But I just think. For Damian Lillard, I think it makes the most sense. Obviously, he has a lot of ties to Miami. He's boys with, Bam. That would be a great marriage. And then going to play for Coach Spoelstra would get the best out of him. And I think, Kyle Lowry being 48 years old at this point, still playing, getting the best out of Kyle Lowry. I can only imagine what you slide in Damian Lillard to take over that point guard position for that team. They're a championship team if Damian Lillard's on that team right now.
I will say this,
they beat
though.
the Nuggets.
I will say this, though. Damian does not fit Heat culture.
Ah.
They're a defensive-minded presence.
Yeah, but dude,
he's not a good defender.
They will mold. No, but I mean, Kyle Lowry is a decent defender at this point, still in his career. But I don't think he would need to be. He's such a dominant offensive player, one of the best shooters of his era. I mean, I think they will get by with his offensive.
Don't get me wrong.
They don't have an offensive player on their team like he would bring to that offense.
They would be a top 3 seed in the East. I'm not sitting here saying it couldn't work. I'm saying that. Okay, the reason I'm picking the Sixers.
I would love that.
Here's
I would
my
love
thing.
that. Yeah.
All right, Joel Embiid's going to be 29 years old this next season, and he's not. We don't know how his body's going to age.
Still banged
so we
up
know
every
that
year.
if they're going to win, it's going to have to be with these next couple of years, right?
Yeah.
Damian Lillard's going to be 33 next season. Okay, we all know that his body. He's been a smaller guy. He probably won't have a long-standing career. He won't be like LeBron James at 30 years old, still out here playing the way he's playing.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that Nick Nurse is getting a second chance. And we know that winning is going to be what gets him the chance to stay as a head coach for a long period of time. So there's a lot of desperation in Philadelphia.
Well, and James Harden's exit,
Exactly.
you slide into Damian Lillard, who's better at this point.
He's been better for a couple of years.
Might be better overall throughout the career. Who knows?
I think James Harden has about a better
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll say that, yeah,
MVP.
as of right now. But, I mean, there's an argument there, I think, by the time their careers end, who had the better career, especially if Damian Lillard can go win a championship somehow. But, yeah, I love the idea of Philly. That would be a good one. I feel like the Heat is kind of like I feel like that's gaining so much traction right now with his ties.
I want you to address though what you said before the show though when it came to Damian about how this is not going to look good for him though, regardless of what he does or where he goes.
The guy's made so many statements about not joining, riding the coattails or joining making the super team move. He's based his whole career, and that's been his whole stance and his whole foundation of who Damian Lillard is. Staying true to Portland. Whether it's for good or for worse, he's remained faithful, and those fans obviously appreciate him for it. And he's had some good teams over there. They just continue to lose. They never find. He always needed that other extra star player, and that's how you win in this league. That's how the NBA's always been. And the whole super team. I'm not even going to go on a tangent about the whole super team shit because every team that's won a championship in the league or had multiple championships, if you will, always had multiple superstar players.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
Outside, like that, one of the few teams that we saw, one of them, underrated teams, I guess, if you will, that went against the super team was the Dallas Mavericks with Dirk. But that was a loaded team too, full of veterans that have been there and done it.
Defensive Player of the Year,
Jason Kidd, arguably the best point guard of all time, was on that roster. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like there was a bunch of bums. So the well-coached team, very good defensive team, underrated defensive team, swept Kobe Bryant the series before. You know what I mean? So, it's not like that was some bummy team. And Dirk's one of the greatest players of all time, one of the toughest players to defend of all time. So, that was one of the few teams that didn't have another, true superstar. But they had the Defensive Player of the Year, Tyson Chandler, on that team as well. So, it wasn't like it was a bunch of bums. But, yeah, Damian Lillard, his whole stance and his whole career has been about staying faithful, not trying to form some super team, not trying to follow the trend, which I just debunked, has never been a trend. It's always been the way things are done in the NBA. It's a superstar based game. The more superstars you have on a team, the chances you are of winning. Most teams that win have superstars, plural. So for me, it leaves wherever there's not a move that's been made yet. But once this move gets done, whether he moves to Miami or Philly, joins another superstar player or superstars. Or stars amongst a team with a good coach or whatever, and he joins a team that's already had success in the postseason. That's going to ruin his whole stance in my mind. It's going to ruin the integrity of what he's always stood for, quote unquote. And I love Dame, and I respected his statements when he made them. As long as he stays true to him. But if he moves now and he gets getting the itch to want to go win and be a champion in his career and make a run for it, it's going to ruin the whole thing he made. The whole statement he made before about being that guy and remaining faithful to his word and whatever, blah blah blah. But now he's getting cold feet, and for me, man, it's gonna hurt his legacy, his individual legacy. For me personally, for him being so staunch about it, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's really where I'm at. I mean, no move has been made. He could end up in Portland again, but it definitely seems that Portland's actively helping him search for another destination. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's all the questions we got, man.
I like it.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys all the time, man. Every single time you guys bring something to us, man, we feel like we're getting closer to the people that support us and do what we do, man. We love it, and we would love for more of that. If you guys have any questions, any takes, any concerns, comments, whatever you guys got, drop it to us on our YouTube channel. Hit us up in the comment bar and let us know what you guys are thinking, what you guys are fuming on, whether you're pissed off about something or you want to talk about anything in the world of sports. That's what we're here to do, and we appreciate it every single week. Trevor, we have one more order of business to get to. What is it called?
Hold this L.
Each and every week, we finish off each and every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who is ever holding these L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Trevor Twidwell, who's holding the L for you this week, my man?
So I'm going to keep it in the vein of the NBA. The NBA is maybe the most progressive when it comes to podcasts and players speaking their minds. Obviously, the Draymond's leading the way of the world. Whole lot of basketball podcasts now, and I love it, man. I think it's great for the culture of the game. I think it's great for sports. I think it's great to learn and get to know the personalities and the individualities and of these players, because they are individuals. They are human beings first and foremost before they are an NBA player or a product on the court or the field. But there's one player in particular that's been catching some heat over this past week, and that would be the big man, the center for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns. I am a fan of his talent. I was a fan of him coming out of college. He is definitely a very skilled big man, one of the better skilled big men as far as like overall tool bag, what he can do in his game. He obviously believes that as well, because he believes he has changed the game. When it's all said and done, looking back on his career, he believes people are going to say that Karl Anthony Towns has changed the game. I'm just going to play this clip here for you guys where he says not only that he changed the game. Well, actually, that's the second clip. I'm just gonna delve into that real quick about Karl Anthony Towns changing the game. I don't even need to play that clip because it's a pretty straightforward comment. He claims that when it's all said and done, his career is over. He's going to be looked at as one of those guys that changed the game. Listen, I'm a fan of his game. I do. I like his game. His ability to hit the three and shoot the three. His ability to be a solid post player. His defense is decent. Very good effort guy. Listen, I would vouch to say that he's more forgettable than he is going to be looked at as someone who changed the game, right? And I think any true player, we even had, listen, Draymond is a troll of all trolls, and I'll give him that. But Draymond is, when it comes to hoops, the guy knows his shit. The guy speaks a lot of truth to. I say he speaks a lot more truth than he does bullshit. He has his moments like, bro, stop mouth breathing, wipe the saliva off your lips, like get it together. He has those moments as well. But Draymond Green even came out himself and said, half the time we forget that you're even out there playing. And that's a rough statement to make, because I think he is amongst the most talented big men in this league, Karl Anthony Towns. But he has no success in this league. You know what I mean? He always fails. His team's always barely fighting for scraps to get into the play-in tournament or even to make the playoffs at all, right? And speaking of that play-in tournament and their past season, this past year, heading into the postseason, Cat also, he didn't stop there when he said he's going to be one of those people that look back on retroactively that he changed the game. He also believes, and shout out to the Nuggets, man. That team was incredible this year. The Nuggets did it. They finished the job. Good for them. Great. But Cat wanted to kind of piss in their cereal a little bit because he believes, in this clip, he believes that the Timberwolves run this year, what they did on a short notice with the moves, with D'Angelo moving and all that, was more special than the Nuggets championship run. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip for you. Right. Yeah. Everybody in that, you should just see everybody's face on that podcast when he was saying that. What the Timberwolves did was more special than the Nuggets winning their first ever championship in the history of the Nuggets franchise. Their first ever.
Pretty close, it's pretty close.
Jokic, could have very well been the MVP. Shout out to Joel Embiid, deserved it 100%. But Jokic had, his numbers in the postseason are legendary this postseason. Absolutely legendary what he did, especially against Anthony Davis, going against one of the best defensive big men in the league, Anthony Davis, and was just doing them the whole series. And Anthony Davis had no answer for him. Granted, Anthony Davis played well himself in that series, but Jokic was the alpha of the postseason this year. It's not even a question. Granted, he had Jamal Murray playing his best basketball of his career as well, and that was just something you weren't going to beat them this year. It was the Nuggets' time. But yet, the Timberwolves were still more special this year. It's one of the most asinine things I've ever heard. This is what I'm saying. It's a two-edged sword for me, man, because I love the podcast. I love the fact that these individuals, these players get to kind of showcase who they are as people. And some of them are real smart, and some of them are not so smart. And that statement right there alone was just an example of one of those things that's just not so smart. Just like Paul Pierce, anytime he gets on a live stream, it's like, dude, buckle up. What is this Nimrod going to say? Bro, did you see that recent one with him and KG? That shit was hilarious. He didn't even know they were live. Homo was high. He had a girl rented for the evening. That shit was epic, bro. It's some of the best shit I've ever seen in my life. Anyways, to reel that back into Karl Anthony Towns, an active player. Yeah, just do me a solid, buddy. Do me a solid here and hold this L.
There's nothing more outside of a Chiefs victory. Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, that's the highlight of my sports world. LeBron winning another title, that's a highlight of my sports world. But I ain't going to lie. I am very much enjoying the debacle in Buffalo right now that's going on.
Baby.
If you're not aware of it, okay. I'll fill you guys in briefly, and I'm going to get to the details of why there's a significant L going to somebody in particular, but mostly to the Buffalo Bills. So the Heavy.com, another place I like to go to because they have really good articles, and they're very detailed, and I like the way they write their articles out, especially when they mention me and Mitchell Schwartz talking on Twitter. The Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp was a roller coaster of drama with Stephon Diggs' bizarre absence from practice on day one and head coach Sean McDermott's attempt at damage control on day two. While canceling the last day of minicamp, it is a normal move across the league. The Bills' decision to not only raise more eyebrows, Diggs did not address the media, so speculation of how or why the team's number one wide receiver and Bills, quote, got to a point where they just felt like they needed a break in some space, as McDermott described, continued to grow. One of the biggest fan theories supported by a former NFL wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson on ESPN was that Diggs had issues with Bills offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, who's firmly in the hot seat heading into the year two in his role. However, during an appearance on Talking Buffalo, the Athletic's Tim Graham revealed the one detail that could confirm that was Diggs' rift with the team not due to a clash with Dorsey.
Mm.
Upset about? Is it easily fixable? Where do you think they're at right now?
Let me start. My take is I don't have one. And I've been trying to find out what is the issue.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And everybody's been really tightly lipped about it.
Yeah.
I've been told that it is not Ken Dorsey, if you want to strike that one off the list, because that's about all I could wriggle out of one of my sources. And when I generally come up with a column, I'm not, and we've talked about this on the podcast, we've talked about this, whether it be here or over beers, and I've just said it on all kinds of different platforms, so people have heard me say this. Maybe they haven't if they listen to this podcast. I would not make a good columnist like Jerry Sullivan or Bucky Gleason. I can't shoot from the hip. That is a skill to do, especially on deadline.
Sure.
For me to have an opinion on something, I get as much information as I can before I have an opinion on something. So the fact that I don't know what the issue is, it might be something incredibly profound. It could be something really stupid and juvenile and silly. So at fault here, or if anybody really is, my only opinion so far is that this was an incredibly bad week for Buffalo Bills communications department or the whatever process everything had to go through of like how we're going to say it. Maybe Sean McDermott, this was him shooting from the hip. Maybe this wasn't talked out. But if this wasn't planned or expected or not well thought out before Sean McDermott sat down on Tuesday, that in and of itself is a failure.
I'm going to stop it right there because you can tell this reporter is trying to be very careful on how he says this. That's why he had these long spaces in between because he knows things that he can't actually say right now. That's why he said it could be profound or really stupid. I don't think it's the latter. I think it's the former.
Shaggy commented on here, just said that Buffalo canceled their final day of mandatory OTAs too. So
yes, and then Pat McAfee. I'm gonna play this because Michael Lombardi. I'm not a big fan of his normally, but he is a very well connected guy. And this isn't in particular about Stephon Diggs. It's talking about a bigger problem that I think is festering within the Bills organization that no one's talked about to this point, because we obviously are addressing the fact that Sean McDermott goes up to the podium when Stephon Diggs isn't there, and they're asking him, are you concerned? And he legitimately says very openly, I'm very concerned. It's very concerning. And so it opens up this Pandora's box of speculation from all of us. And then Stephon Diggs shows up and tries to act like there's no big deal, but isn't available to media still. And then Sean McDermott wants to come out and say day two, he did everything he was told to do. He was here because his agent had to confirm it that he was actually in Buffalo. They were actually doing mandatory mini camps. He just wasn't there day one. And then Sean McDermott tried to downplay all of it. But this is the biggest problem that's going on with Buffalo. And if you notice, there's one common name in all of this: Sean McDermott. So this is on the Pat McAfee show, and this is Michael Lombardi talking about a problem that's actually grown since the famous 13 seconds with the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is what he breaks down.
I think they have a lot of things going on. Let's go back to Leslie Frazier's departure, the defensive coordinator, right? Sean McDermott wants to call the defensive plays, and Leslie Frazier was in charge of that. Now, let's even go further back. 13 seconds in Kansas City, McDermott took over the play call on that drive that resulted in a field goal. That didn't sit well with Leslie. The next year, he kept calling the defense. But this year, McDermott wants to call the defense. And Leslie, for whatever reason, he said, no, look, that was the agreement we had. So he decided to leave and take a sabbatical. And so I think there's a little bit of an undercurrent there.
Hey, have you said this publicly before, what you just said there?
I said it on my podcast. I said it on my podcast on the GM Shuffle. I said it on what day? I think Thursday. I think I said it yesterday or Monday. I forget. I lose sight of the days.
Yeah, a lot of different days they could potentially said it there with a lot of different time. That's the first time I'm hearing that.
Breaking news.
That's why I put on a ticker.
Well, so I think there's some internal combustion going on within that building.
You don't say, Michael.
Dysfunction.
You don't say. That's an absolute bombshell.
Damn.
They try to... You saw Pat McAfee. Go watch the video on Pat McAfee's Twitter. He's like, what? Like, that is news. That was news to me, man, when Michael Lombardi dropped that on the Pat McAfee show. He said it on his podcast. I didn't hear that on the Michael Lombardi show. But, dude, for him to literally say on this show so conveniently, so confidently that, and it's like a passerby comment where you're like, oh, yeah, Leslie Frazier got so sick of Sean McDermott taking over his job, he just fucking quit.
That's crazy.
That's a bombshell. I did not know.
One of the best coordinators in the league, too.
Sean McDermott literally told Leslie Frazier, step out of the way. I'm calling the plays here. And that ended up costing them the game. And then last season, the way their season went in the postseason especially, Sean McDermott was calling the plays. Leslie Frazier, a legendary DC in this league, said, no, you got it so well, you don't need me. And he bounced. Like, Sean McDermott is the problem in Buffalo.
Know your worth.
Like, I like Sean McDermott. He was a former understudy of Andy Reid. He was a defensive-minded guy for Andy Reid, but even Andy Reid fired him at one point. Now, obviously, Andy Reid thought that was the best thing for Sean and ended up working for Sean because now he's a head coach in the league. But you're seeing the threads coming loose in Buffalo as each season progresses. Trevor, the football season hasn't even started yet, and Buffalo already on shaky ground as it is. It's because their guy at the top, their most important asset, which is their head coach, doesn't know how to run his team. This is a big, big problem, man. I've been telling you, the Stephon Diggs thing is his own entity, but now we have this whole other big old monstrous thing that's in the background that's been there since freaking 2021 that's now rearing its ugly head into this team going into 2023 when maybe the pressure isn't so much on them as the expected champions like they have been over the last 2 years where Josh Allen isn't the MVP favorite, but this is a team that's supposed to prove everybody wrong first and foremost. And now, honestly, I think this team is as unconfident as they have been over the last 4 years.
Damn.
Because of this very problem. Sean McDermott's got to be on the hot seat. Ken Dorsey's got to be on the hot seat. Leslie Frazier straight up bounced. Josh Allen can't even get on the same page with his number one wide receiver receiver who made his career, by the way, because we saw what Josh Allen was before Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Wasn't elite.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing them having problems. Stephon Diggs not showing up to many games. They're canceling the last practice, like our guy Shaggy said. There's some real problems in Buffalo. And I'm not sitting here trying to be Mr. Hype Train in Kansas City because I don't have to do that.
No, Shaggy's saying McDermott could be fired mid-season, if not next month, he said.
I don't think he's going to get fired this year.
But
if they fail again, let's say they go like 11-6 or 12-5 or something like that.
Well, that's some damning information coming out on the Pat McAfee show, man.
I'll say this, Trevor. I'll say this right now. If the Buffalo Bills don't make the Super Bowl this year, I think that Sean McDermott is fired.
Yeah.
Because he's had how many opportunities with a great team? Josh Allen in his prime, Stephon Diggs in his prime. You had all these great defenses.
You look at Dayball leaving. Dayball's finding success immediately. Coach of the year.
Leslie Frazier's leaving singularly because of this guy.
One of the best defensive coordinators in the league.
Imagine Eric Bieniemy leaving the Chiefs because Andy Reid was taking over coaching plays, the Chiefs lost because of it.
That's a bad look.
It's a horrible look.
Yep.
So you can't have your head coach doing things like this, and it's bigger. It goes so much deeper than I even realized. We thought it was just this Stephon Diggs thing. No, Sean McDermott has dropped the ball across literally on both sides of the field.
Yeah, and it would be different if this was the Panthers or something like that, or some team that's not really in the runnings. This is a team that's been a Super Bowl favorite for the last 2 seasons. They just got leapfrogged by the Bengals now. Bengals are probably second to, and they're kind of have that more expectation because they actually made a Super Bowl.
And this is all a follow through because Stephon Diggs doing this on the sidelines of Josh Allen. Yeah. It's all festering from the things that Sean McDermott has done as a head coach. This is why we talk about all the time that head coaches in the NBA are valuable, but coaches in the NFL, when you have a great coach, you can't put a price tag on it. When you have a guy that's not good enough, you got to move off eventually, man. So Sean McDermott's in big trouble, so I'm using this long-winded speech to say, Sean McDermott, Buffalo Bills, do me a solid and
hold this L. Man.
It's already ugly in the season.
Can't say I don't love it, man.
You hate to see it. It's been a fun show, primarily because of the fact that you guys chimed in. We had some great comments, some great discussion with you guys. We want to keep that ball rolling, man. We want to keep that momentum rolling because that is what makes this show so much fun for us is when we get to interact with you guys. It could be complete strangers, but the moment we start talking, we become friends, we become family at the Spoken Podcast, and we appreciate each and every one of you guys for doing that. Keep it going, though, man. Hit us up in the chat. Hit us up on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Go to the
and
YouTube
let us know.
side.
Yes, let us know what you guys want to talk about, man, because it doesn't even have to be what we're talking about. Bring up something new. Bring up something fresh. If it's something we haven't talked about in a while or something we've not talked about at all and you've noticed that, bring it up. Let us know what you guys freaking call me out about. I don't care.
Yeah, and we're trying to grow the brand too as well. So if you guys, gals at work, if anybody's bringing up sports talk stuff, bring up our show, tell them to subscribe to the show. We're trying to grow the brand a little bit and kind of reach out and try some new things. Tell your friends.
We'd appreciate it, man. So for Trevor Twidwell, for the great Clay Windler that puts all this together on the back end, I am Lance Twidwell, the Spoken Podcast. Episode 221 is finished. Back on for episode 2.